Hello and welcome to the Animation Kimmunication podcast, your source for discussion about animation, film, fandom, and more. So please join your host, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, or KP, and Lauren Kizich, the Abbey Roadie, for today's discussion. If you like what you hear, please remember to support by giving a like, a follow, as well as subscribing to the main I Love Kim Possible a Lot channel on YouTube. Spread the word and keep being a part of a great community. This episode contains some mild adult language.
So welcome everyone to this episode of Animation Kimmunication, where we have YouTube people again. In case you're getting tired of YouTube people, here's another YouTube person. Lauren's here. Say hi, Lauren. Okay, I was like, oh god, I said hi, Lauren. She's gonna say hi, Lauren, back to me. Oh god, it's ruined. It's ruined.
My brain said it.
So a quick channel update before I forget, because I will forget. So in order to entice people to watch the videos as soon as they come out, we're doing sketch giveaways, essentially. So if you, I think the new upload time is like Wednesdays at like 11 Eastern. I'll check that if I'm wrong. But anyway, so for those who are new, we do trailers on generally social media, and we do like a like the stories tab if I can ever get it to work, and like on the community tab, essentially the channel. That's probably will go, because that way it's the least confusing one, essentially saying like, hey, we're gonna upload a video, please pay attention. And analytics are good. I soft gold, like my soft gold for this year's maybe get 150 by the end of the year, hopefully. Maybe if we can see some substantial growth, please guys watch and subscribe. But yeah, if you want to win a drawing from me or a team member, I've been doing them for the most part now, or for the most part in general, but you know, if I'm like tired, and it's a sketch, it's a headshot sketch of you or your favorite character, so something that would take, you know, something that isn't too long, obviously, because you know we're not giving away.
Yeah, there's lots of talented people on the team, so
anyway, so how you do that is
people.
we'll probably do it from every video from now on. So you, like, when the video comes out, you just leave a comment saying like, hey, I like this part, like ideally watch the video, don't just like comment on it and leave. So yeah, so hopefully, and then you might win this free sketch. I'll be like, hey, you won, email us here to claim your prize. And you're like, I want you to draw a horse. And then I'm like, oh man, I can never get away. The last one I did one for 127K. So numbers are hard. I did one for that, and the guy wanted a Riker from Star Trek, and I'm just like, oh, I haven't drawn people in a while, and I drew it, and I'm just like, oh, well, here you go, hope you like it. Sorry, it sucks.
Practice.
But yeah, so hopefully that's a fun way for people to be enticed to watch the videos as soon as they come out. You know, like, you know, if you want to help us reach our goals, please subscribe and notify and tell your friends we're cool. Okay, enough, like, sucking up to the man. Okay, Lauren, what's the actual news?
So, the sitch this week, we got a couple headlines here. So, first of all, Pixar, they dropped promotional images, like promotional art, I guess you could say, of their new movie Luca that's going to be released in 2021. As far as the summary goes, they seem to only be giving away that is a story about a boy spending an unforgettable summer on the coast of the Italian Riviera, which to me and to many people apparently sounded a lot like Call Me By Your Name. Sorry to the kiddies who are probably
we can have a
listening
clean
to this. I don't know.
We can have a clean episode, because
don't watch.
Is a very clean person, so...
Yeah, but I was gonna say, if in case there's any kids, it's an adult movie. Well, not like that kind of adult movie, but there's a scene in there which is not for kids, definitely not for kids. But as far as I could find a little further on the movie was, I guess the kid is also kind of like a sea monster. So I'm almost taking it like the 13th year. If you ever heard of that movie about
that,
the boy who, when he turns 13,
that,
like the year two, and so he's a mermaid.
Was that a Disney Channel original movie? Oh, okay.
Yes. It was like from like the early 2000s. That's when, like, if you remember the 13th year, that's what also came to mind. But, you know, this is what I'm gauging off of, just literally 2 lines of a summary. But I mean, at least based on the production art, and also the fact that the director of the movie was the director for the short La Luna, which was one of the Pixar shorts, and it's gorgeous. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. He's going to be working on the movie, and so so it's encouraging to see that the production art almost looks like it could have almost been like a Ghibli movie in terms of, you know, the use of color and the art style that they may be going for, as far as we can base on the concept art. So yeah, I'm personally excited, and it takes place in Italy, which, you know, it's going to be pretty, and they better showcase some fantastic Italian food, because what's Italy without the food? That
reminds me, I'm hungry. I'm probably going to eat after we record.
And then I guess another headline is the upcoming Spongebob movie, Sponge on the Run. It's going to be released in Canada and other countries, I guess internationally, really soon, within this year. However, the U.S. release, which I guess they're still trying to slate it for Netflix, it's not going to be until 2021. And we're all scratching our heads trying to figure that one out, because it's like, I know it's one of those highly anticipated movies, and it was supposed to come out, you know, I guess it was supposed to come out like a few months ago anyway, and they kept delaying it because of COVID, and so people were highly anticipating it all year. So, I guess everybody kind of figured it would end up on Netflix for everybody at some point this year, but not for the US. So I don't know if that's a distribution issue or anything like that, but that news just broke recently as well.
Okay. I'm just checking the news. I found one other headline I think is worth mentioning. Kevin Smith is developing a Green Hornet animated series with Wild Brain. So
ooh,
yay, there's that. So hopefully, like, someone will actually do something neat with the Green Hornet that doesn't suck.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's news to me too. So that's good.
I just double checked. Trying to think if there's anything else. Speaking of things on Netflix, here's your hint: go watch Animal Crackers and then come back. There you go. Heavily imply things.
Yeah. In terms of episode release, yes, go watch Animal Crackers. It's, as of this recording of this episode, it's been out for about a week on Netflix, and actually throughout the week it was in like the top, at least within like the top 10 slots of like movies being watched, and at one point actually a few points it was number 1 movie being watched on Netflix. So there you go. So I think it's definitely something that personally I had been highly anticipating it. I've already seen it, and I do recommend giving it a watch. It is beautiful. It's got basically the character designer was Carter Goodrich, who has done designs for Despicable Me, and he's a book illustrator as well, and he also had worked on Brave as well. So a lot of his design aesthetic also got translated into the Brave, the Pixar movie. So so it's a lot of fun, and it was directed by Tony Bancroft and Scott Christian Sava, who wrote the story, and it's got a huge voice cast. I mean, I couldn't name them all on 2 hands. So it's a lot of people. Please go check it out.
People you might care about. Like, I'm pretty sure you millennials care about Danny DeVito. So he's a circus clown. Again,
he is a treasure.
It kind of gave me. Go ahead.
And actually, I was going to say, it's actually technically what was supposed to be the first movie that Emily Blunt and John Krasinski worked on together as a married couple. So there you go. Before A Quiet Place.
Well, it was the first one finished, I guess. So there's that silver lining.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think. Yeah, like they have Ian McKellen, right, as the bad guy, and he's like super hammy. Like, holy crap! I don't know.
Yep.
Like, I don't know how they convinced him to do it, but I'm like, oh my god, hammy people, that was just fun. So, yeah, it's definitely not, like, I'll just say it's definitely not the strongest film narratively, but it's still fun. So, you know, you'll quote it. But
it's a long happy film. So if you want something that's gonna make you happy for like 90 minutes, then there you go.
A good way to put it. There's your hint. Now come back later and you'll be like, oh, I get it, and then I'm like, yeah. So I think that's it for the news. Any other things to mention, you think, Lauren?
Not that I can think of. News develops on a daily basis. Yeah, I guess that is it for right now anyway.
Okay, that was great news. Wasn't that a lot of great news? Speaking of great news, so we have another YouTuber this week. Yay! Mixing it up a little bit. So we have the Phantom Strider, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yeah, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are for the two people who don't know who you are.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm Phantom Strider. I'm a weirdo who talks about cartoons on YouTube, and I also have a friend named Boo next to me. He's like a darker ghost. He laughs.
Oh, okay. For a second, I thought, like, are you talking to people like a dog in the room or something like that?
No, next to me, Boo. You know,
Mario.
Little ghost with the smiley face.
Yeah. I follow you. Sorry, it's been a day. Anyway, so the general discussion today is a more relaxed show in general, just kind of discussing bad animation and what we can take away from it, essentially, because a lot of Phantom stuff is like talking about, things that are bad, and, I probably might talk about things that are bad in general sometimes too, but the YouTube algorithm is centered kind of like the critics thing from Ratatouille, like, reading bad reviews are fun, and writing them is fun because you can, like, how dare these people, they don't have any integrity, they're just putting this stuff out. And I think a lot of people don't realize, too, that if a movie is potentially bad, there might be other factors that aren't the creative people's faults, too. Like, there might be
Absolutely.
budget problems, there might be, like, executive decisions. Sometimes, at the end of the day, the whatever it is just has to get out to the public, essentially. I think that's what happened with Rise of Skywalker. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but everything was like a hot mess, and they hired George Lucas to help with it, and then
I think they hired J.J. Abrams. I don't think they hired Lucas. They didn't want him within 100,000 feet of the show after the prequels.
Yeah, I mean, we're this is not a Star Wars podcast, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they hired George Lucas near the end to kind of, like, as a like...
Really?
Not
I was going to say the consultant.
But just a creative consultant, essentially.
Oh.
Yeah, because Rise of Skywalker was a mess, and it's, like, still a mess for people who aren't paying attention. And then they didn't, like, so this is what I've heard, that they didn't use the cut that he wanted them to use, because I think in the last scene there were supposed to be cameos from, like all of the prequel actors and stuff, instead of them just being voiceover things. And George Lucas was so mad that he walked out of that screening that they didn't use his ending. So, yeah, and now there's talks about, rebooting the whole sequels trilogy, and it's going to be in a separate canon, and they're going to do it all again, and I don't know, but, I like how Disney is like, we're going to do Star Wars right, and they're like, oh, wait, never mind.
It's a funny thing, because, like, I was thinking about that the other day, all the directors have been saying Star Wars will go on forever, but I think each director has single-handedly killed it, to quote Red Letter Media, and, like, if I hear that opening one more time, I think I will go bonkers. I'm just so tired of it. I don't want to hear an orchestra do it, I don't want to hear a remix of it, or even the Cantina theme, it's just like, I can't do it anymore. And I think a little bit of the public, after 30 years, is just kind of done with it. So I don't know if there'll be plenty of merchandise. Disney's got to get their $1 billion or so back, understandably. It's a huge investment.
I mean, we got the
you know.
theme park stuff. I mean, we wouldn't have Rise of the Resistance without this new trilogy. So, I mean, as much as anybody can complain about it, I mean, once you've ridden Rise of the Resistance, I don't think it's very hard for, I think, even like the naysayers to like say, okay, well, I mean, I didn't have fun with that. It was this wholly immersive thing that has multiple parts and actors and animatronics and a whole experience. And no, that wasn't fun at all.
Yeah, we'll tell that story near the end, I guess, when we have some time to kill, essentially. So Phantom, so what are some of your favorite bad animation films, and what kind of inspires you to talk about animation specifically? Like, even though, like, we talk about movies and stuff, but, you know, like the people we bring on the podcast are animation more centric. I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking. You know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Good question. So, like, some of my favorites, one I grew up with was Sonic, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, and what I really appreciate about bad animation even more nowadays is, and part of what makes it fun to talk about is you have no idea what to expect half the time. Sometimes the budget limitations are actually part of what give it charm and creativity, in that there are all these funny ways. You give something like, in Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, for example, the animation budget is so low, you can just get squiggles for characters sometimes, or just completely random things. And because it's for, like, they didn't really pay as much attention, and have as many quality standards, they can just give the kids anything in the story. And it actually gives it a so bad it's good charm. It's a bit like The Room. You might have heard that film. Part of what the charm of that is that because it's coming from an earnest place from the creator, even though it's terrible, it creates something where you have no idea what to expect. And one of the difficult things sometimes of, say, a quality Disney show is you kind of know what to expect and how things are going to go down to some degree. But with absolute garbage, you don't always know. It could be really interesting.
Even no matter, and what's even funnier is that no matter how much money you can put into a project, you could still, I think Food Fight is the biggest example of that, where you're dumping $65 million into something because of, what was it, an act of industrial espionage, to quote an article about it, where like 95% of the film was done or something like that, and all the files were somehow stolen, so they had to redo the whole thing all over again, and no wonder it cost $65 million to make, but yet it still looks bad. Yeah. It's funny because, you can get something no matter, good or bad. I mean, it's all comes down to, you know, writing and the producer and the director making sure all the right shots are being called. But also, especially coming from a place of, like, even with The Room, like you pointed out, it's coming from a place of, like, where Tommy genuinely thought he was making a good movie. And so, but what it ended up creating was just a cult classic of, like, where it's so bad it's enjoyable, and I can't even remember how much it cost to make that movie, because, you know, there was that whole backstory as to how much money Tommy had, and where he had, like, this bottomless pit of a bank account somewhere, and so you just, like, he was a man of mystery. If you ever, for those of you who are listening, if you ever want to read or even see the movie The Disaster Artist, it goes in depth into that whole production and how bizarre the whole thing was. And the book is really good. I read the book, so, by the way, that's really good. But yeah, it's interesting to see these kinds of projects where, you know, you could have all this money to pour into a production and make it look good and sound good, but it doesn't always guarantee it.
And, you know, you have something like Sharknado, where they try and purposely make it bad to be funny, and it doesn't really work because you can kind of feel the corporate wheels turning in the background. It's not a creative piece from an individual or a small group. It's got to be a certain way. It's got to be kind of self-referential. I don't know. It's a funny line, the so bad it's good, but you see it a lot in animation, particularly older films now.
It's that's, again, it's like when you look at certain things where if it's like low budget or something, there, like you said, there's like a charm to it. especially if it's coming from a place where there seems to be, some kind of passion behind it, where or at least gauging that the crew is having some kind of fun with what they're doing, even if they're not fully enjoying it.
Oh, yeah. Kim, you made a really good point earlier before where you were saying that sometimes people, like, they have really limited budget constraints, and because of that, they'll honestly try and make something good, even if it ends up quite bad. And honestly, that has actually changed me over the last few years because so much of animation is just downright difficult to do compared to, some trashy sitcom. And it's actually it's mellowed me out a lot in my delivery. I don't really do those worst lists anymore. And when I do, I try to go into the positive points as well as the negative. My most common lists nowadays are actually worst and best lists, where I can say, this is what they did, and I kind of understand why they did it, but and it is that tricky thing for all of us that we still want to be, interesting and entertaining, but we've still got to, appeal to the YouTube algorithm and do some worst. But I've definitely found that I've got so much more appreciation for even bad animation nowadays. I've actually had a animation company reach out to me and saying, I know this is a bad one, but I worked really hard on it, and we only had this much budget, and the shareholders didn't give us much time. So it really is interesting when you get the real story behind how some of these are made.
I mean, speaking of Star Wars, I think those are the primary example of movies that, you can't delete Star Wars, essentially. Like, we can't delete the sequels, we can't delete the prequels. And there's definitely a change in the appreciation of the prequels, I want to say, if that's a thing to say, is like, at first everyone hated them when they came out, and as time went on, people were endeared to them, like, by memes. Like, you can't go anywhere without, or any Star Wars event, not even any Star Wars event, any convention without, someone mentioning a Star Wars movie.
I was going to say, it's over, Anakin, I have the high ground. I hate sand. It's rough and coarse and it gets everywhere.
So, I think, and that's something I'm seeing a lot with older animation specifically. I talk about this a lot, but how Disney, now that Disney Plus is out, and now everyone has access to the majority of the Disney canon except Tarzan, because they're holding on to that to make a big deal about it when they put it on Disney Plus, I guess. I don't know. It's stupid. But, and there's always the horror stories of, Katzenberg and the Black Cauldron and how he, purposely had to shield it, and then he didn't let it be, released to the public for, 10 years. And now, it's freely available. And now, the Disney Reddit is, 35 anniversary Black Cauldron. And so, not that people will remember it, but it's easily accessible, much easily accessible compared to, the years of even, VHS and stuff like that. So I imagine, because people have more access to everything and not just select things that, are guaranteed by the populace, essentially, people's tastes are going to widen, as well as maybe some of those things that, deserve more appreciation, will find kind of a home, because these people, maybe it's a small group, but a small group will say, hey, Disney, you know what I would do? I know you want to make, Mickey Mouse on everything, even though, things are shut down right now. But, I would kill for, a Gurgi, keychain, just a keychain. That's all I want. And then they put the keychain out just to, see what would happen. And then it's, a Beanie Baby, where it's, a select edition thing, and people are like, ooh. And then Disney's like, maybe there's something to it. And I'm just like, we told you, every animator fan person ever, so that's what I expect will happen. But Phantom, do you have any specific examples of maybe films that at first you were I'm not sure what this, I'm not really sure about this one, but maybe as time went on, or or you had the fuller story, you kind of gained a different perspective?
Oh, yeah, definitely. One I love to talk about was one actually I grew up with, as I mentioned before, is Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. You've got a lot of different iterations of Sonic the Hedgehog. You've got Sonic the Hedgehog Sonic Sat AM, which was a much more serious version of the cartoon, much more well done, more sophisticated story, good pro-environmental message that's still subtle, and better animation, good characters. You get Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which I've ended up watching way more over the years, which is a much worse piece of animation because there's about 64 episodes and I never know what to expect. Like, Sonic, Robotnik can marry Sonic when he disguises himself as, like, Lucinda, his ex-fiancée, or, like, Robotnik can, I don't know, turn into Super Robotnik, but there's a special weakness on his derriere, so when he steps on a tack, or sits on a tack, he's weak. You get the most crazy, kind of unexpected stories, and as I've gotten older, I've found that as an adult, I appreciate just having a chill show more, rather than, I'm not really looking for the high investments, particularly when you've had a long day and you've been working on this or that, and you're just like, I just want something familiar or fun or silly. I don't want to, see the minds of little animals violated and turned into robots and watch Robotnik take over the world today. I just want to see some silly... I want to see Sonic, make fun of Robotnik and them have a, good old time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think a lot of those board-driven shows, too, like... I'll do the difference real quick if you don't know what that term means. So today in television animation, there's two types of or how they make shows. There's the script driven, which is exactly like it sounds, and then they give it to the storyboarders, and the storyboarders board their scenes based on the script, or the other way around, where you have minimal dialogue, and then it's just given to the storyboarders, and the storyboarders have to invent stuff for what to happen essentially in the episode. So a lot of times, especially when there's nonverbal sections, the storyboarders are like gags, like what would like make the jokes work. And I think there's definitely like something where even if it's not so much like monotonous, it's just like routine. Well, it is monotonous, but like it doesn't have to be necessarily talking down to the audience. In order to just kind of shut your brain off and like, this is how I know what's going to go, even though there might be some exceptions. Like the example that comes off the top of my head is Phineas and Ferb, which is a good show. It's not a bad show, obviously, but it is very monotonous purposely, like the formula. So, even if you miss an episode or whatever, it's not
what saves it though is obviously the writing, because it's like the gags are always great. The songs, there's like gosh, what, like 100 songs at least in Phineas and Ferb throughout its entire run. Big numbers or small songs, just like I think, gosh, who did? I'm trying to remember. Somebody ranked all the... Oh, that's right. It was Shea Frillis who ranked every single song out of Phineas and Ferb, and I did not realize how many there were until he ranked them all. So it's...
It takes gall to do that many songs in a show.
And especially at the point where, like if you have enough presence on YouTube, the creators are probably going to like, hey, this guy made a video about the thing I made and it's like blowing up. Phantom, I know this is a little bit off topic, but do you have any specific instances where people are like, hey, I made the thing that you reviewed. You suck. Or like, it was okay.
Good and bad. One was where, unfortunately, people were actually... some crazy person overseas was being hard on this Russian creator who made a cartoon, and I was just so upset by that someone would be harassing someone else because of me, and it was never my intention. It's certainly not what I promote. I always promote, like... whether others like it or not, that doesn't matter. It's just my silly personal opinion. It's just a cartoon. But a more fun example, let's see. Sonic Boom, the creator of that show, contacted me and said, I put the cartoon in Bad Cartoons That Become Good, which I've regretted, actually, because I really love that show now. I watch it all the time on Netflix. And he said, I don't know whether to say... thank you or be annoyed at you, but either way, thanks for putting me on your show, because that got over like 1 million or so views, and I was
Yeah.
promoting the show, but I kind of wanted just an excuse to talk about it in a kind of negative connotation. Um, I often wonder with The Simpsons because, like, I did worse Simpsons, and one of the big points I made was that Bart was a bit of a psychopath in some of the episodes. And I noticed, like, I think a season later or so, The Simpsons specifically made. I know this is probably completely unrelated, but I just found it funny. The Simpsons made an episode where Bart was taken to a psychopath clinic where he was tried. They did an analysis if he was a psychopath. He was put with a bunch of other psychopaths, and in the end, it turns out, he wasn't willing to go to war to attack these other people, so he wasn't a psychopath. And I was like, well, there they clarified to me he's not a psychopath, but he still acts like it sometimes.
It's like somebody was listening in the writer's room.
I don't know. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that much because, like, they do. A lot of these Simpsons writers now grew up with the '90s show, and yeah, are fans of the Simpsons and social media and stuff. I think that's part of what's changed animation so much. And shows like Steven Universe, for example. I'm not saying it's good or bad or anything like that. I'm not making a comment on it, but I will say that the creators listen very carefully on social media to what the response from their viewers are, and that simply didn't happen before the age of internet because you might get angry
Right.
letters from mums, but you wouldn't get that instant feedback from potentially thousands to millions of people. So really it's changed animation
And
so
plus,
much.
in the day and age of the internet, where it seems like we're past the days where they said stranger danger, don't go on the internet by yourself. Don't talk to strangers on the internet. Meanwhile, what else can we do but talk to strangers on the internet nowadays? And
That's a
so
good point.
it's just kind of funny that now we live in this era where not only is pretty much everybody on the internet, but I think what's also beneficial, at least like to your point of gauging your audience, is like you're going to be hearing from the people who you are trying to cater to, the audiences who are listening, because you're seeing what they're saying online, and so when crews see that and they listen, and then they actually maybe even make changes or add to a story or anything like that based on what they have seen from their fan base online. I think I mean, it can be a good or a bad thing depending on the show and the content. But I think it's in the end, I think it's just really cool that it is a fully interactive world now, where it doesn't seem like there's a disconnect between the people who create these shows and movies and the people who consume them. So it's just it's
Yeah.
crazy, and then it keeps growing and changing.
I'm just looking over the questions.
Oh,
So let me
absolutely.
backtrack
Yeah.
a little bit. So because Phantom, you focus a lot on like probably a much wider range of animation than I do at this moment. Like, what are things that you look for as far as like a good thing or a bad thing? As like, how do you break things down? So because I imagine too, you have a much
what are your
wider reach
categories?
than I do right now. So I imagine there's kind of like a little bit
Yeah.
of fear of like, oh, if I pick this thing and I say the wrong thing about something specifically, then someone might inadvertently like get in trouble or something like that. So I imagine there's a lot of that pressure on you too that I'm not really used to dealing. So tell me about that. So the first part was like, how do you pick your bad and good
Let's
essentially, and like how do you
see.
find like what is objectively good and what is objectively bad?
Okay, let's see. Well, sometimes, let's say I'm talking about DreamWorks movies. I'll look through some of the movies. Then what I'll do is I'll see if, say, it's got what the IMDb response is or the YouTube response is, what they might say in the comments. I'm not actually interested in what the reviewers say, but what the commenters say, whether they say, yeah, I agree. I like to see what the actual general consciousness feeling is. Does it have a cult following? Does it have a lot of people who secretly like it? And from that, you kind of can acknowledge those points to the viewers because I don't necessarily shift my opinion, but I will acknowledge, I can get it if you like this one. There is actually a cult following, and sometimes people want to be heard so much in life, and you just need to acknowledge their perspective. So I'll still have my perspective on this. I personally don't like this show. I think it's silly, but I know it's got a following, so clearly I'm missing something, or you had a better perspective. And because it's all about how you say something sometimes. So yeah, that's normally how I'll do my starting research. I'll basically see what the public thinks, then I'll look at it myself and try and acknowledge things I
'cause,
miss
like,
from what the public
you
thinks,
know,
if that makes sense.
I don't know how closely you follow me, if at all, but essentially we're just kind of dipping our toes into not moving on, but like starting to talk about like animation in general and not just pony content right now. And so I'm kind of like still like surfing through the waters and trying to figure out like what tones we want to make in specific films. And I've already had experiences like that where, for instance, like something relatively recently is my favorite character in the Pony Show. There's a new iteration essentially where it's like non-canon to the other show. The actor for it was replaced, and I was like, oh, and I'm known for liking the actor of the person who plays this character, and I'm just like, hey, this is beyond just me. Like, I'm disappointed, but like, you don't want to like. You never want to send hate to the actor that, just was assigned for the role, essentially. But there's always people that are going to be like, well, I'm mad, for you. And I'm like, that's not what I said, though. So.
Yeah, well, I guess the internet response, the problem is YouTube is a bit like Facebook in some way, in that it inadvertently gets more attention to videos or content when you have a strong emotion, whether that be anger, sadness, or like feeling I have a nuanced opinion of this simply doesn't get the clicks the same way. So that I often find the smaller creators will often be the ones with the most nuanced, interesting opinions that I tend to see, because the algorithm doesn't pick them up because less people. I don't know. It's funny like that. Or sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but nuance certainly isn't really appreciated.
I was
goodness, I had a mind blank.
no either.
Sorry.
Essentially,
What was the point you were saying?
It was pointing out the good and the bad. Like, how do you identify that in animated content?
I think I was just talking about the influence essentially, because but yeah, we can move on. I don't remember. It's okay. It's fine. Lauren, why don't you ask?
No, it's cool.
I don't know what to ask right now.
I was gonna say, because as we're talking about, fan backlash and stuff, I was gonna say, like some of the challenges you face as a reviewer. What do you often face fan backlash for your lists? I know that some people act on behalf of your lists, I guess sometimes, but I don't know how often you get fans backlashing on lists.
The greatest tragedy is when you stop getting fan backlash, honestly, because it means you're in a bubble. It means because that way the algorithm isn't reaching as many non-subscribers, or those who know you are kind of the ones tuning in. And so in some ways it's a tragedy because you're not getting that churn, and you're not getting... I don't know, I tend to get a little bit more excited when my videos get, I try to go for the 100,000 quota on most of my videos, and if I can't get 100,000 people tuning in, I feel like I failed in some ways to engage my subscribers. But like, I feel like that if I'm not getting some backlash, then I'm not getting people who... I'm just in an echo chamber, and like people are just saying, yes, I agree with you. I'm like, no, I want you to think about what I'm saying. I want you to question it. I want you to have a differing opinion than me. I want you to teach me. Just as I want to give you my opinion, I want to expand your perspective. And so it's actually kind of a tragedy to me nowadays, because when I get a viral-ish video, it normally gets a bit of backlash. It'll get backlash from, if I have a strong opinion on something, like I say, Trump's a turd, which I will comfortably do very regularly without any sorrow whatsoever. If I have a fairly bigger video, people will say, "Oh, how can you make that opinion? How dare you? He's done this and this." And I'm like, "Good, it's reaching an outside the echo chamber." And the people who need to hear that do hear that,
I think
or at
we
least
found
a
the
few of them.
secret.
And even if they tell me I'm a turd, at least they're hearing it. So,
Yeah, I guess.
yeah. So it's backlash is a good thing in some ways, as hurtful as it can be. And, I imagine you and Kim and you, Abby, probably really hurt inside when you get some bad backlash. But that just means you're still feeling, you're not cold inside, and that you do empathize, that you are sensitive. And even though it can hurt, the fact that it still hurts you and you're not just callous to it, means that you're still a good creator and you're the kind of people we need.
It's like, tell that to
on
my
YouTube.
therapist.
That's really nice. Like that is an extremely positive way to look at it, and I appreciate that. Yeah, and yeah, to branch off of that point is like discourse is important, and like to step outside of the echo chamber to hear what other people have to say, it is important, because I mean, if we didn't have contrast, where is the growth going to come from? Where are we going to grow? Where is anybody else going to grow?
That's exactly right. And when we don't question our own opinions and we don't have anyone to question it, that's how we get these divided sides in society, where we just have these group mentalities of these guys are super evil and the other guys think we're super evil and that sort of thing. And there's just these complete differences where we can't see in each other. And it's, I don't know, what causes some of the insanity that has
welcome to
happened
the
in
politics
recent years.
animation
Part of
topic
it.
we're going to talk about. No, yeah,
I promise we'll switch.
right.
Well, they go hand in hand. Like, life is politics.
Mm-hmm.
People are politics. Your deep ethical thoughts are deeply connected to your politics. And it's scary sometimes, because we try to separate them and say, oh, it's just politics.
Right.
Because we don't want it to matter, because, like, we can't change it. But the hard part is accepting we can't always change it, but still trying to change what we can, because politics is related to animation. It affects how characters treat each other, how we let characters treat each other. So it's all connected, but sometimes it's really scary to accept. It's all connected.
I know with like a number of like I know with a number of shows and movies, I mean, that's why I always like to hear various opinions. Like, I like to hear your take on movies, and I like to hear maybe Doug Walker's take on movies, and then I like to hear a few other people's take on movies, just so I can see, like, I want to hear what everybody else likes and doesn't like about something, because then it's like, I want to be able to look at something and be like, okay, now I get why this person liked this, and now I get why this was I can see how this was a flaw, and how I can see this would upset somebody else, and how somebody else maybe goes, oh, but that's a strength in that, it's like, I like to see all that different stuff, because I mean, I've had opinions change about movies, like, not just because of like what other people are saying, but it helps me become more aware of what I'm missing, that other people are catching. And so it's like saying like, oh, this doesn't seem like a very good movie or whatever. It's like, like, or at first I didn't like it, but then I hear what other people have to say and what they did like about it and what they didn't like about it. And I go, you know what, that's really interesting. That's a really interesting take. I have to look at this again and see it in that kind of light. And then suddenly it's like, it is. It's just like how hearing what other people have to say can change things. And
And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I still don't get their points. I try. You're stronger than me, Abby, because sometimes I just can't get the other side.
And like with certain things that, I can be like a little bit more stubborn. But it's like, I do like to hear what other people have to say, because then it's to an extent, if it means like, okay, if I can see this and see why so many other people like it and I'm missing something, then what am I missing? So it's because then that way it's like, okay, I kind of get it a little more rounded, you know?
I'll just say two things. I think to round back to the original topic at hand, I think one of the biggest points we can learn from bad animation is, like, we've talked about this before, but like critiquing and really understanding what like, you know, a good structure for, you know, a movie is, you know, like in dissecting like the American 3-act structure to, like, you know, a lot of Japanese and a lot of like that kind of stuff has like they formulate their movies differently essentially. So I think that's why like a lot of the Miyazaki films are kind of just like you feel like you're watching something really new because it's a little bit off the beaten path essentially from what your expectations are. But the other thing I think is a lot of times the bad can like get us familiar with something specifically, like, you know, like we've talked about Sonic. So maybe if there was that really bad the really bad Sonic thing exists, but then it kind of makes you go like, okay, well, was Sonic always bad? Like, where did Sonic come from? Like, is there any good in Sonic? And then kind of really digest, you know, why this character maybe is getting so many, you know, spin-offs. Like, I also think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because they just keep on making them and they just won't stop, you know, and like why these characters remain in the public conscience and what people are doing with them consistently to change the thing from the last thing they made. The other good example I wanted to bring is, so the best Scooby-Doo is Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. Fight me in the comments. And so if you haven't seen Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, it's great.
You're totally right. Yeah.
And you know they have a recurring arc. They try to develop the characters, like Freddy and Daphne actually date. Scooby and Shaggy, no, Shaggy and Velma date. Yeah, and then it was like something that was relatively new, is they just released some creator of the show staff is like, yeah, Velma was gay. She just didn't know it yet, and we tried to make it as inherent as possible in the show, but, you know, this was also, like, in the early 2000s, so, you know, we can only get away with so much. Yeah, so,
No, the 2010s.
But I think that's why people are just starting to rediscover it, is because there's just so much Scooby-Doo stuff. Like, that's one of the properties that keeps on being remade over and over and over. And then they try again with, like, the Jetsons with the other dog that looks like Scooby-Doo, but not really. Yeah, so, you know, like, when,
Astral.
like, trying to figure out, like, just taking a direct-to-DVD Scooby-Doo movie and dissecting, like, okay, why is this bad? Why is Zombie Island better than this other one that, you know, I found in the dollar bin store, essentially. And I think, like, when you come away from that, you can kind of understand, like, what particularly, like, you like about something, you know, not something that's universally good or universally bad, but, like, what you like about certain iterations. And then maybe if you're a writer or you're creative yourself, you can use those elements into your own writing. It's like, well, I like how they had an arc here where this character, you know, does X or dates X or, you know, whatever. That's something I really like about this show, so maybe that's something that I want to play with in my own creative field, essentially. And I think that's kind of like the biggest takeaway. The other point I wanted to make, too, especially talking about reviewing and stuff like that, is like everyone has a slightly different persona than how they act, you know, regularly, essentially. Like, you know, my personal thing is I play myself up and, you know, basically exaggerate myself, but at the end of the day, like, we know that you have your own opinions and you're not inherently bad or lesser because you disagree with us, essentially. You know, a lot of times we play this stuff up for comedy, and I feel bad when that doesn't really get through to people, or they just take it too much at face value. Like, you know, we are still, you know, entertainers, I guess, you know, if you want to call it that. You know, and even if we're talking as ourselves, we're still gonna, our deliveries are going to be different than, you know, if I was just talking to Lauren, like, you know, somewhere. And, yeah, okay, those are the points I wanted to make, so anyone can jump in on that.
I think, yeah, that's some really good points there. And the fact that we are taken so seriously by some people when we have a presence on the internet, it doesn't take any qualifications, as we've many often seen, to get on the internet, and some of the people we've seen on the internet, and to get influence and power on the internet. And realizing your personal influence and still saying, well, I still want to have my own opinion, and, still being able to entertain and be a bit more emotional, you know, it becomes a real careful game, because it's like, I realize I have an influence, even though I'm just acting to a bit. So, and finding that balance of still acting and having fun, but also realizing people of any age could potentially take what you're saying very seriously. It makes it a difficult balancing act, because we shouldn't, people on the internet in general probably shouldn't have as much influence as they have. But when I heard once that, internet personalities now have more influence than Hollywood stars, it really shocked me, but also surprised me that the Minecrafter down the road who, plays Minecraft online, has more influence during one of his swearing facades on, little Johnny than I don't know, Captain America
and I think
does.
part of that is in the end, most of the time, YouTubers are like, they're regular everyday people that are doing it either at home, or they're doing it in their neighborhood, or they're regular people. They're not people that are in multi-million-dollar movies. They're not people who have a star on the Walk of Fame. They're not anybody that's like a major TV personality. Sometimes it's like maybe they get that deal down the line, depending on who they are.
You guys remember when Fred was a thing, and Fred had like a
but
deal
most
with
of the time
Nickelodeon, and then I don't know what happened.
Yeah. And then John Cena was his dad. I did have to laugh at that just seeing that clip. There was a clip of that surfaced the other day, and I just remember, I'm like, oh, that's right. That was bizarre. I mean, but I did have to laugh at that just because of how bizarre the situation was. But and the fact that Fred is body slammed by John Cena. So I mean, but yeah, in the end, it is because I feel like, because just YouTubers have more of that grounding in being regular everyday people, and more often begin as those regular everyday people that just create a YouTube channel and just want to do something and get an audience for it, right? Yep. And they just do it and they want to have fun with it. Yep. So and then it ends up becoming, maybe like it blows up and becomes something super huge. Like if you're a Markiplier or a Jacksepticeye or PewDiePie or anything like that, or you're the Game Grumps or anybody like that you make it that so big. But it's, in the end, there's still people that began as regular people, where it seems like, almost like with Hollywood, there seems to be like a nepotism where, somebody's parents were involved in movies before they were, or worked in the movies, or, knew somebody who knew somebody. Meanwhile, in YouTube and in social media and all that stuff, it's not
nepotism in Hollywood?
So much nepotism.
Sorry.
It may take knowing some people to get...
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said it's totally nepotism in Hollywood.
I never even thought of that. You are absolutely right, yeah. It's in YouTube, it's very much sink or swim. It is ruthlessly harsh. But in Hollywood, there is definitely, and in jobs in general, there is a certain amount of nepotism. That is a very good point. I never thought of that before, but nepotism disappears when it comes to internet personalities online. It's just harsh contest.
And it's and especially because I feel like with online personalities and having them being rooted in people that began it as maybe it's just something they wanted to do for fun, and if they happen to be more interactive with fans, I mean, fans will feed into that. They're like, I can talk to this person and they're talking to me. Or they hear me, they hear my opinion, they hear my thoughts. And so when you have that interactivity, there's no disconnect. There's no separation anymore. And of course, so it's not like thinking, oh, I'm never going to meet Chris Evans ever. He's a big time movie star. I doubt I'd ever meet him. Meanwhile, when you have YouTube people, I mean, I ran into Matt Pat and his wife at the zoo once, and I never thought I would meet him, but I somehow was starstruck more than I was with meeting some other celebrities, because it's more like, oh my gosh, because you're a regular person. That's right. And I have a much better chance of meeting you in person than a celebrity would who has been in a million movies, because there isn't as much of a social disconnect and they're not trying to hide so much. So it's that kind of thing and that's why I feel like a lot more people listen to people online, because in the end, it's a bunch of people, regular people with a bunch of different opinions.
Yeah, the relatability is really, that's another good point.
No, just
KP,
being
you got anything to say?
is hard because, like, with all that stuff, essentially, it makes I don't, like, a lot of, like, my troubles on the internet haven't been necessarily because I'm a girl, but, it doesn't help, especially, I think the future of, say, conventions are going to get more social influencers instead of, voice actors and stuff, because the social influencers are cheaper. They can advertise for themselves, It just seems like an easier ticket, essentially, than just, like, getting, like, a voice actor who was a small voice actor in something, but, there's not as much bang for your buck there. So, when you hear, like, so-and-so is going to be at this convention, and they're, it's just like, oh, well, they're just regular people. They're not just, like, they're not the voiceovers with the security. They're just, like, vending at a booth, and I can just go say hi, and, and, like, I can give KP my number, and, like, what could possibly go wrong? And I'm just like, yeah, so we're a little off topic, essentially, but...
I feel like it does kind of root back into, though, like, because it does end up feeding back into reviewing the good and the bad in animation and stuff like that, because it all comes down to opinions and feedback. So it's just like, and who you hear it from and who delivers it. Because in the end, it's like, yeah, we are all people responding to it and to content, good and bad, and, and it depends on who's looking at it and what defines what is good and what is bad, even though there are often times where something, if it's majority, for the majority part taken as bad, then yeah, it's objectively bad. But it's, but yeah, in the end, it is, because we do have to be careful also with, with our opinions online, because, yeah, like what we pointed out earlier is that it seems like more people listen to the reviewers online than they do any like movie critics that, or Rotten Tomatoes or anything like that. That's why critic score versus audience score, it shows you the difference in who gauges what, and what the audience sees as maybe good or bad versus what the critics claim is good or bad. And even when the audience themselves becomes critics. So it's like, it's taking in all of that. And yeah, I don't know. That was a little spiel that went on.
No, it's a really good point. And it also means that you've got to be careful in what products you endorse, because you're suddenly worth more to advertisers when you are more relatable to people, because it also means people listen to you more, as we were saying. So it also means they'll listen to you. If you say, this makeup will make you, I don't know, feel better about yourself or some garbage like that. And, so you've got to be careful as well on what you endorse, because they may offer you a lot of money, in order to get this message across, because you are influential. So, yeah, that's a bit of a game as well. And
speaking of endorsements, Raid Shadow Legends.
They actually emailed me, and I said no. And they were terrible, because they offered it, they offer a competitive price, and I think that's why they get through to everyone. But they kept on spam emailing me, and I said, please go through my agent. I'm not interested. How did you get my private email? And they just kept going, and I had to block them.
Oh, man.
And so I now, whenever someone talks about it, I say, no, they are annoying. They didn't speak English very well, which is fine. But God, if you're spreading that much money, just hire someone to write an English email for you that doesn't feel so unpersonalized. I don't know. I could stick it on a billboard. It was terrible.
Yeah. The price of fame, is it not? How did you get my email?
Oh God, I haven't heard about Raid Legends in a while.
Oh. every so
Well,
often
it backfired on
every
me.
so often
It
it rears its
backfired
head.
because
So now everything
Ugly
is about
head.
the VPNs, which that's fine. That's for protection. So
Honestly, I would actually endorse them because I use them anyway, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't know if it's that useful for everyone if things people think it is, but if you want a VPN, you're in Australia or China or something like that where everything's blocked,
Oh
it is
no, we
handy.
tricked you.
And I'm not endorsing them. This
we're
isn't a paid
stating
product
examples
placement.
based off we're
It's
stating
handy.
examples based off of our videos that were recommended to us because YouTube algorithms, that's how they work.
Oh, by the way, Kim, I just gotta say, if you decide to get bored of YouTube, you would make a great Webby Duck on the new DuckTales. You just have the perfect voice for a little bit of nervousness, but at the same
Oh
time,
man,
that
if only
confidence
I
and
could get that
strength.
gig, that would
You
be
just make a
fun. I'm
great
not really
Webby
much of
Duck.
an actress, but money is money, and like DuckTales is a good thing. Good for me, yeah. One of my
just be
friends is
you.
like a really hardcore Donald Duck historian though, so I'll tell her you said that. But
Donald
oh
Duck
yeah, she has a
stands
lot.
in
She
the
has
house.
she has a Donald Duck cell of the three Caballeros signed by Walt Disney. Yeah.
Oh, whoa.
So-
Are you serious?
Whoa.
I don't know. You can ask
Jeez,
her.
how'd she get that?
A lot of eBay money.
That's right. She and I can go on a discussion about Donald being the hands
Welcome
down
to
the
the
best
Donald
Disney
Duck
character.
podcast, Whackers. Let's see. Other questions. Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
I was gonna say, I guess if you wanted to get into it, what was your most difficult review to do, like in terms of I guess in terms of ranking maybe movies or episodes of a show? What was your most difficult one? Because I know sometimes if it's like a show with hundreds of episodes or anything like that, what would be your most difficult one that you've had to narrow down, or do you anticipate would be one to narrow down?
I generally did the really difficult ones in the first 2 years, rather than the last 5 years. So I did the really ones I shouldn't do, like Best Simpsons, which I so regret doing because all my choices have changed. I'm like, that was terrible. How could I not include that? A lot of my worst lists have stayed the same. Like I did Worst Simpsons, and that was kind of difficult to pick because there were a lot of bad episodes that other people thought were really bad. I was like, no, this is worse. So Simpsons was what. That wasn't too bad, actually. Oddly enough, one of the hardest ones I did was actually Disney games. I did that one recently. I've been expanding more into games. Like you, Kim, I'm just trying to expand what I've been doing lately. And it was really hard to pick out some of the great games because they expand over like 30 years. And Disney is often difficult because a lot of their titles are quality. Like, they're just a certain quality standard. Like, they're not terrible voice acting ever. They're not like really entertainingly bad. So Disney is really popular, to talk about, but it's also sometimes really difficult to say this $200 million Disney movie is not good. It's you just can't say that. It's like, no, I had to do worst to best modern Disney movies because when you're doing $200 million animation genius movies, like the most expensive movies in the world, that have been approved by 500 shareholders, you're not going to get something that's, entertainingly bad. I had to say the worst of the, I had to go worst to best, and the worst of them was Ralph Breaks the Internet, in my opinion. And even that, obviously, is contrasted. I thought it wasn't my cup of tea. I thought it, was pretty lousy in a lot of areas, but a lot of people like it.
I was gonna say, just to hush, whispers under breath, Mars needs moms.
Oh yeah, well that you don't get many like that, and that's the tricky part. Is like that one's like 10 years old now, and I did add that to my worst Disney movies. But to stay fresh, you got to talk about the new stuff, and none of the new stuff is that bad. So you've really got to dig deep
valid,
sometimes. So
yeah.
some of those are really difficult.
I think it's also gets kind of tricky when a lot of the companies change how their marketing strategies and what they can expect. Like Disney is pretty good as far as keeping things consistent for the most time. Like we have outliers like, Ralph Breaks the Internet and, Wreck-It Ralph in general, a video game. But, like the one that comes off the top of my head is DreamWorks, because DreamWorks has kind of gone from like, a somewhat, serious 2D company to like DreamWorks face. Yeah. So, and, it's also, like people remember Shrek and people remember Road to El Dorado, and obviously Prince of Egypt is the best. But, I don't remember like a lot of DreamWorks stuff, like I don't remember the Snail movie. I don't remember like the B movie. People are remembering that because it is so bad it's good. But, I don't think people would, it's not a good movie, obviously. So, I don't know. It's a weird contrast.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. DreamWorks is a funny one because they had a really bad, I feel, sort of dip in the middle of the sort of career. Personally, I feel Shrek 1 didn't age that well. Shrek 2, really, really quality, really good, great characters, great growth. Shrek 4, take it or leave it. But, like, in the middle, around the Shark Tale era, was just terrible. Like, that wasn't a particularly good movie. They felt like Sony, or... No, that's a bit harsh. So I like Hotel Transylvania, but they felt like bad Sony movies. And now they've got stuff like How to Train Your Dragon, and they take themselves a bit more seriously. They don't do like the really stupid fish face stuff. So I feel like they've had a dip in the middle, and they're coming.
Especially with their television division, where they're doing all of. They're really branching out with a lot of the content that they've had on there. And then also when they expand upon their movies in some of those shows, like if you have How to Train Your Dragon, or even like Trolls or anything like that, like they've been going strong with a lot of that content and pushing it hard. So that's good.
Tons of Netflix content, like Troll Hunters. They've even sort of done some anime-esque ones.
I'll just say
good,
She-Ra, obviously.
Television content.
Yes. Yeah, She-Ra's.
Oh, is that DreamWorks? Oh, hell yeah.
If you don't know that yet, like we're out this recording, we're almost done with my like big ass She-Ra review, and it's gonna be like 30 minutes, and we have like live action cosplayers in it, like cosplaying and like acting the scenes out in character. And I'm tired. Like this is turned into a monster. It will be good, but it's turned into a monster. So anyway,
Nice.
Lord, fun. I'm trying to think. Yeah, if you want to subscribe,
Link me when that's out. I'd love to see it.
Hit that
Yeah, for
button. Hit the notification bell.
tell everyone how awesome
I'm glad you
am,
told
please.
me.
Make people like me. No, it's always like kind of dangerous because as we're I've said this before, I think, but I'll repeat my point. Like part of our big expansion plan is reaching out for people who want to do collabs, and I'm always afraid that like people are because part of it is like I want to be sincere and be like, yo, we really care about this stuff too, but also like we need subscribers. I'm tired of these pony people. So that's a joke. I love you pony people. But anyway, so it's just kind of coming off. Pony people are nice. Yeah, like I love Discord too.
I love pony people.
And it's like I personally like them too because a lot of my content is basically talking to myself, and I have like big outliers where we do like more grandiose things. We do like animation projects and that kind of thing as a standalone. But like even that, it's just like me talking to myself and me telling people, hey, I want to do this, and people are like, hey, that sounds cool, essentially. So I think doing the collabs in general are really kind of branching. Hold on, I'm doing a podcast, Mom. Anyway, that's my mother, everyone. You can cut that, obviously. editor person. Yeah, so, trying to find people that are interested in doing collabs and don't just see the standard, like, oh, she just, it's an advertisement thing. And I'm like, yes, but, like, we can play with artistic styles and stuff like that. So, yeah, so even though it took a while, thanks, Phantom, for being my friend. It's cool.
Yeah. Oh, my pleasure, and thank
Sure.
you likewise for inviting me on. And you made a really good point. If I could just finish on that, is to say that I am just doing yet another collab with George and adding him into the script and stuff. And the thing about when you're doing a collab is you start thinking in the other person's shoes. It makes you think about how you're going to do that exchange. What do they think? And I think it's a really good. It grows us as people because we start to think from another person's perspective. It forces us to, in order to make an authentic crossover. So I do think, collabs are really valuable, even if it's not for, growing to plenty of subscribers, but instead
we're
just
not all
because,
slaves to the
one, you meet new
algorithm,
people, and
so,
two, you grow as a person.
I think...
Yeah.
Okay,
You
yeah,
be
so
you,
I think
Kim.
Phantom has to go to the dentist
And you,
now.
Lauren.
So, oh, we'll hang...
I
So,
don't. I don't
yeah,
want
we
to,
gotta
but I
make
do.
Dental
sure.
hygiene is
Now
important.
today I learned they have dentists in Australia. Yay, I know they do, but, like, that's just a funny, silly fact. So...
Well, it's been a
thanks
pleasure.
so much
Thank you
for-
so much. I appreciate
Yeah,
your
Lauren
time.
was excited.
we're
She's like,
very
I watch
happy to
these
have
videos,
you.
and I'm like, yay. So,
Yeah. When I was gonna say she name dropped you in a
you.
conversation. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, you mentioned Phantom Strider. Wait, what did you say? I'm like, so yeah. So I've been watching for
I'm
years.
honored.
So
Thank you,
it's been really awesome to
wow.
have you on. So thank you for joining us.
yeah. And if you guys want to see Phantom again, just
Thank
yell
you.
at him on
Likewise, my
Twitter.
pleasure.
It'll be
I'll
fine.
talk to you two later.
Politely yell at him.
And we'll have him
All right,
on for a
bye.
part 2, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Anyway,
Bye.
so
See ya.
thanks for so Phantom is gone at this point, but thanks for listening to this episode of Animation Communication. If I haven't told you 5 times, please make sure you're subscribed to the main channel. We're desperately trying to make it grow, and we value you, random person. So now you can win some free art if you comment on the videos when they come out. You can get things for free. I know that's your favorite thing when you're listening to a podcast that we make for free. Go check out Phantom if you haven't. He's a really nice guy, as you guys probably heard. He's very sincere. I follow us on the Instagrams and the Twitters. Like, no one really cares that the podcast has an Instagram account, but, like, we technically put promos up there, and then we have a Twitter, and then we have social media, and then we have, like, our personal social media, and then...
Yeah, so
If you-
do all the follows, do all the
please
sharing,
notice
do
me
all the
senpai,
subscribing.
But,
But and we aim for, obviously every Wednesday we try to have our releases up on your streaming services, audio streaming services like podcast services in the morning, and then towards the evening we usually have like a YouTube visualizer version up on our YouTube channel in the evening. So that's basically,
so the majority of
I
you
think
are
that
probably
basically sums it up.
using YouTube, so thanks YouTube for existing essentially. But if you really want to hear them beforehand, you can go on SoundCloud or Spotify or iTunes, and they're up like 5 or 6 hours earlier. I was like, listen to them on your commute to nowhere. You know what? That sounds like a good idea. All right, so thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Make sure you watch Animal Crackers for next time. I don't know how more blunt I can be without telling things. So, yay, see you next week.
Yes, please watch Animal Crackers, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Animation Communication on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider. We are really hoping this show makes a difference in how people view animation and media, as well as giving and providing advice for people all over the world who like or want to join the animation or media industry. If you liked what you heard, please remember to subscribe and rate those 5 stars, as well as tell your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our main YouTube channel, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, and turn those notifications on. My name is Scribbler, and you have been listening to Animation Kimmunication.